You can learn a lot when you stop and pause on a long journey or during a long project if you take the time to actually consider what you have gained. We will talk about your pathway checkpoints, the takeaways from those checkpoints, and more on episode 760 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. How are you today, Bob?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks.
Awesome.
Sorry, work that you're doing. You're a little behind.
I was for some reason it didn't do its thing in time for me to do my thing.
Computer's running a little.
I don't like this blue and blue as I look at. Oh well.
Now you're judging your outfit.
The judgment bell.
Yes, the judgment bell that we're trying to turn into a key point bell ringer moments in today's Antidote.
There you go.
One of our new projects that we're working on. All right. So anything was date night was last night, right? How did that go?
Oh, wow. It was very nice. Thank you.
I was just thinking about, you weren't sharing anything. And so usually you have something that you want to share. And I knew that you have date night every Wednesday. Wow, did you get uncomfortable? All right. Time to move on. Welcome.
I don't even know what.
I wanted to throw you a little bit. You seemed a little like, I don't know what. So
I will tell you, I was on date night last night, and there was a moment where I was told we were talking about my day and what I did, and we were talking about today's Antidote. And at one point, the person I was with said, "With Bob Graham and Tom Brush." I was like, "Oh, so you listen a little bit, huh?" Yeah, from time to time.
Yeah, which likely means more often than you could imagine. So now I'll get in trouble this morning.
No, you won't get in trouble. You're fine. It's all good.
All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where we have a conversation around a topic. This week's topic has been your pathways checkpoints. All month we've been talking about your pathway. And so if you have missed any of those episodes, you might want to go back. There's some good things that we discussed around your pathway and all the things that happen while you're on your pathway. Today, in talking about checkpoints, we're going to talk about the takeaways, not our takeaway from the conversation. Bob and I were talking about this. He was a little confused about the conversation we would have. So I'm trying to continue to clarify. These are the takeaways that you have when you actually take the time and pause or stop and consider at a checkpoint where you're at, where you've been, and where you still have to go. So as we go through that conversation, if you have any thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, please feel free to put them in the comments because we know it'll add value to our show.
I'm pointing to the comments area.
What if the comment section is to their right or left?
Now I look like I'm on the Hollywood Squares.
For those of you on the podcast who don't see, Bob was pointing in the direction that I was talking about, just so to make sure everyone knew where the comment section was. Yet on a podcast, there is no comment section. And so you have to join us in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group where you can share your thoughts and ideas there. Anyhow, at the end of our conversation, Bob and I will each offer our one thing, our today's antidote, that thing that we hope will help you if you are stuck. If you're uncertain about, I had never thought about a takeaway when I stopped at a checkpoint, or had never considered it as a takeaway. I just felt like it was a stopping point to let me catch my breath and then move forward. Hopefully these antidotes will help you figure out how to take that next step and how to understand differently what you are gaining from the checkpoints that you have. And of course, if you have a one thing that you'd like to share, your antidote, please feel free to put it in the comments as well. because Bob and I only have two. We'll just have one each. And there are probably a lot of other antidotes to the challenges that we face on a daily basis. And you might share the antidote that someone else is desperately looking for. So please share your value in an effort that it will help someone else. Before we dive into our conversation, though, each morning, Bob and I share our celebrations. So, Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I don't have anything for once.
What?
I totally blanked. So
now you can wait, hold on. Bob, we do this every day. How can you not be prepared with something?
All right, I've got one now.
Okay.
One of the things that I don't always recognize that you and I actually have a little bit of skill at is finding opportunities. And you and I are working in the background on some things, and we're not ready to share them yet, but we made a pretty big stride yesterday. And we talked about it. And, I'm an idea guy, and you're much more of an implementer guy. And you implemented that, and it's moving along in a really positive direction, which I'm excited about. It's a great partnership in that respect. One of us gets an idea and the other makes it work. The other gets an idea, and we just seem to have a good synergy without having to go, okay, who's going to do this? I don't think we've ever had that discussion. It's always been, yeah, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. So I'm going to celebrate that give and take that you and I have.
Okay. Awesome. Yes, it was fun to play your role because I'm usually the one who, and you didn't come back with my line. Well, I have so many things to celebrate. It's hard to choose.
No, I didn't. I'm still getting through the first part of the show.
I'm going to keep you on your toes for the rest of the show.
Keep going.
So, would you like to know what I'm going to celebrate, or should we?
Yes, I would.
For those of you who don't know, especially on the podcast, because you couldn't see it, Bob just ran his hand through his hair twice in a row. Bang, bang. And that's usually Bob's sign that he's really uncomfortable. So I'll chat for a little while about my celebration so that Bob can regain his composure so that he can move forward and have our conversation. So my celebration of all things is that, not on a whim, but I knew there was something to TikTok. And so I've tried to become pretty consistent. And I think for at least the last week or more, I've put a new TikTok up every day. And I'm starting to get to close to 100 views a day on each TikTok.
Wow.
Not quite where most people are at, where they're in the thousands and none.
And where can I go to look for TikTok Tom? It's not TikTok Tom. What is the, if I were to go to TikTok, is it, are you a renegade, right?
Are you a renegade?
Are the letter
R, letter
U, the letter renegade.
Renegade. Yes.
Okay.
And you can follow where I share some tips and strategies and to help people with more confidence. And usually it's a lot of takeaways from this. Be like, hey, you know what? I was thinking about this, and I'll share it in just another platform. Just another way that you can connect and engage with us. So I would love if you would follow my TikTok. My wife says they're boring. Okay. I'm a boring person. So hopefully there's someone out there who is also boring who finds some value, at least some people who keep watching. So that's my celebration.
They're not boring. They're engaging.
It's everyone. Bob, were you trying to put a comment?
Oh, I was. I put it in the wrong place. See, I'm so rattled this morning. So much going on.
Yes, indeed. Well, I appreciate that you think I'm not boring. I just feel like this is the way I want to share, and I can work on my game. I have some skills in TikTok.
Yeah, you're more consistent about TikTok than I am. I get out there a little bit, but not as much as you do.
And you were actually surprised at some of the things that I knew about TikTok that you weren't aware.
Yes.
And I know that always burns you a little bit.
It does. There's a positive comment.
There's something about 761 episodes plus that provide me with some insight. All right, time to move on.
Indeed.
So, Bob, as we were talking all week about your pathways checkpoints, and we talked a little bit about what they are. We talked on Tuesday about their challenges. Yesterday, we talked about the benefits. And I think the thought now is like, how do we take away from them? We sort of talked a little bit of why they're helpful and why they're challenging. And I think it's important to talk about what we can take away from them if we choose to engage in them.
So you brought up date night earlier,
Okay.
and I'm going to use the parallel of date night to a business, because one of the things I find when I go back and listen to some of our broadcasts, when you take it out of the business element and put it somewhere else, it often clicks in a more, it gets away from the business parts and you start to see what's going on there, really what's going on. So I try to do date night with the person I'm dating, I guess would be the way to describe it. And that's how I would describe it. Yes, I'm dating this person.
Who else would you go on date night with but the person that you are dating?
Well, it could be the person you are married to. Right?
Fair. That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
There is a difference. I'm aware of the difference now.
Okay.
And so date nights usually every Wednesday night. And there are Wednesday nights where I would say it goes really well. And there are date nights where it doesn't go really well. And
are you judging
when
them?
I am.
Okay.
So I've had to build some checkpoints along the way. Believe it or not, one of the most important checkpoints is at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I need to turn off work. I've realized I need to like stop work for an hour before date night begins. Because if I don't, work mind Bob, who's million directions, doing all these things, is still in work zone, which is different than date zone.
Okay.
So one of the checkpoints for me, believe it or not, is if I'm meeting, I met Jen last night at, what time was it? It was about 7:15. I stopped working at 6:15. Like I had plenty I could keep doing. I was in the zone, but it's like, I need this hour. That's a checkpoint. The checkpoint was I need to clear my head. You know, I played my guitar for 15 minutes. I had the TV on. I literally got out of work mode so that I could be in date mode at date time. I also, at one point, was a little tired. I'm like, oh boy, it's 8:15. I've had a long day. I need to like just go home and go to bed. And it's like, whoa, checkpoint, timeout. I need to be focused here. This is really valuable time. I don't get this much time with this person. I really want to cherish this time. So it's like, all right, you know what? Wake up and be engaged in it. And so those are the checkpoints for that. And I think you see it. I also see it to move it back to business when I'm in a meeting. If I'm talking and droning on and someone's like, oh, wow, you know, looking at the watch, like, okay, I got a problem. I need to take that checkpoint. That's a immediate checkpoint that wasn't in my script. That's a sign I should probably speed this along or engage them in some way. And you do speaking and I do speaking. You're in front of an audience. You kind of get that feel that, wow, they aren't into it. I need to change things up here. This is not going how I anticipated. I need to course correct. And I think we do it effortlessly a lot when we're in the flow in our business, when we're doing things that we're good at, we do it really well. In fact, I know that I've had to train some people at jobs where they're like, how did you know to do this thing? I'm like, I just knew. They're like, no, I want to understand. And I can't even explain it. It's just I've learned this works this way. You know, I had one job where if I promised people donuts, if they hit a deadline, that was all it took. Hey, if you get the deadline by Thursday, I'll bring in donuts Friday morning. Okay. That drove all kinds of success. The checkpoint was Wednesday. They'd have a meeting without me and be like, hey, really want donuts Friday? What do we have to do to get this thing done Thursday? So they built a checkpoint to achieve the result. And I think that's the value of checkpoints. That's the takeaway to me is the checkpoints give us a chance to check in. Literally, it says it in the words, check in and figure out where we are on that pathway. Are we going in the direction we expected? Have we deviated? How can we course correct? And like I've said probably 50 times now, when an airplane is on autopilot, 95% of the time it's course correcting. I was on a plane last week and I was thinking about that. It's like, you just think they set it from Florida to Baltimore to BWI Airport, boom, put it in, and it just goes straight there. Except for the fact that there's wind, there's other planes, there's turbulence. All these factors influence it, just like the world we're in. If you think of the airplane, you would think it's going to fly right to where it wants to go. That's a pretty straightforward situation. But there's all these external factors. We too have all these external factors that influence what we're doing, just like an airplane. So if an airplane is course correcting 95% of the time, I would go out on a limb and bet that you and I are course correcting 95, maybe 97% of the time. And the only way to course correct is to check in and look at checkpoint, right? The plane is every minute or every 30 seconds going, am I going towards Baltimore, Washington Airport? Oh, nope, turn left. Oh, my elevation's too high. Oh, this, that. That's what we're doing in business. We do it all day. We don't think about it. You and I course correct during this program. I would bet in this program alone, there are probably 20 course corrections. In fact, you have the big course correction. You've got to take all the stuff I throw at you now and somehow turn it into gold.
A little bit of pressure there, Bob.
But you don't know what I'm going to say.
Correct.
We don't script this. So you could say, hey, this program, wow, Bob said exactly what I expected him to say. That really makes the point, and I'm just going to reinforce what he says. Or you can say, wow, that's not the direction I was going to take. I'm going to come at it a different way. Or a third option would be, I'm going to challenge Bob on this. Those are all checkpoints and course corrections from those checkpoints on the pathway of how you anticipate or how you want the audience to understand this information versus how I want to, right?
Yes. And it's interesting.
I love when you say yes and. That's my favorite because then it's like, I got you thinking.
Well, anyhow. I was actually going to go a little different route. Although what you were saying helped me really clarify what I was going to, and it's funny, I don't always know what route I'm going to take. Many times it's based off of you say something and gets me thinking about something else.
Which is checkpoints and correcting.
Well, and what I think is, it was interesting. You described your checkpoint as when you're talking about date night, as you need an hour beforehand. And as soon as you started talking about that, I was like, you know what? That's a takeaway from a previous checkpoint. Because at some point, after a date night, you would go home and be like, okay, well, how did that go? And you took the time, even if you might not have considered it a checkpoint, you took the time to pause and say, how did this go? And you might have said, I wasn't as engaged because I was thinking about work, or I was still really tired because I worked right up until the moment I had to left and I felt like things were left unfinished or whatever. The takeaway you had from those checkpoints was, I need to build in an hour between when I stop working and when I leave for date night so that my mind is at a place where I'm all in, that I'm present, fully present for what's going on. And I think the same with your example around speaking is at some point you had the first experience of someone or a group just not being engaged. And you had to say, well, I wonder what
Teach
happened.
College, you'll get that every night.
Well, that might just be because they were up late the night before. It might not have anything to do with your presentation or how engaged they want to be. And so I think the same thing. You observed, you took the time to say, when they start yawning or they sort of look at their phone without trying to look at their phone, something is going on and I need to do something different. And so you took that time to actually consider, like, what has happened and how might I address that the next time? It's one of the questions that we always ask when we do what is literally a checkpoint. Say, what might I do differently? You might see Joe in the back yawning, and Joe's always in the back yawning. And so it doesn't necessarily, and he's the same one that comes up and asks questions all the time. So he's engaged. He's just was up late every night. And that's where he's at when he comes to your class. And so you might have that information the more checkpoints you go. And your takeaway is, that's just Joe. He's paying attention. He just is always yawning. Rather than, oh my gosh, what do I need to do differently because the class or someone in the class isn't engaged? And I think that to me is the power of these takeaways. As I think about pathway, I always think about it driving. Maybe just because I've done a lot of long distance driving. And to me, each stop is a checkpoint. It's to be like, okay, where am I at? And what is my takeaway? Sometimes maybe I haven't eaten a whole lot. And so I'm driving and I'm like, geez, you know what? I have to go to the bathroom more often because I haven't eaten enough. And so my takeaway is I either need to eat more or I need to think about, if this is the case and maybe I can't do anything about it now, I'm going to probably have to stop a little bit sooner than I might otherwise expected because of where I am at the moment. And I think that as we consider that if we don't take the time to do that, we just keep doing what we've always done and be like, okay, my journey is always just I've got to get to this next place. Doesn't matter what else is going on. I just am going to steam ahead and get to my next normal stop because that's where I like to stop. Or for your work is like, I have to keep working because I got to get these things done. And I haven't learned that. How does that impact what comes next? And that's to me why I think that taking the time to identify and consider what are your takeaways and how might they impact what you do next can make a significant difference along your pathway to whatever the success is you're trying to achieve. You like that?
That was good. Yeah, that could almost be your one thing.
Could almost be. You never know. Do you have your one thing?
I do. And I think when we think about takeaways, there are infinite opportunities for takeaways. And we often don't avail ourselves of as many of them as we could. I'm not saying we have to take all those opportunities, but as I think of some of the things I've done, had I been more attuned to the opportunities to check in and see where I was, it would be probably more advantageous. And I know in teaching over the years, and I've taught on and off college for like 25, 28 years, part of what made me a better teacher was I was getting better at identifying the signals for when things weren't going the way I was intending. What I could read when students were confused. I could read when the one example we did in the book wasn't good enough, and I could pivot and create another example. I could read when it was review night, and you could just be like, they're going to tank this test because they don't understand this. I need to stop, walk through it again, assign them more homework, and postpone the test a week because they really don't understand the concept. And I think we do that when you look at people who are seasoned in their jobs. I think that's what they're ultimately really good at, is figuring out the takeaways and applying them to situations. Ooh. Getting some money out of that bell.
Yes, indeed. I like that. And it's interesting, as you were saying, there are infinite opportunities for takeaways. I think that also means there's infinite opportunities for checkpoints. And I think that we don't often pause to consider. Sometimes we stop and sometimes we can just pause. And both of those could be checkpoints. And to me, it's all about learning. It goes back to learning, is all the opportunities we have to learn. And I think that in those opportunities, we also have the opportunity to overwhelm. It's kind of that opportunity and obstacles. They're both there for the taking. And so I think as we consider our takeaways from our checkpoints, there doesn't have to be 100 of them. There doesn't have to be one that's like earth-shattering, blow my mind. They're just one that has an impact on our knowledge, experience, and perspective and what's real for us. And I think when we take the opportunity to take a checkpoint and consider what a takeaway might be more frequently, we pick up those one or two things that really make a difference that we can kind of understand and comprehend rather than saying, oh yeah, I got 100 takeaways from this presentation that I did on Tuesday. How am I ever going to incorporate that and figure out like which one I'm going to apply the next time I do it? I think it'd become overwhelmed, and it would be trying to have too much of an impact on what's real for me. Like I've got to change the whole thing. Rather, I think if I walk away with one or two things, it allows me to really sort of comprehend that and be like, that's interesting. And then measure it along with all the other knowledge, experience, and perspective I have to see how does that fit in. And it might be a one-off and be like, okay, that's nice to know. It's interesting. It's a one-off. Maybe it doesn't have the impact. Or it could be it's that one that says, wow, this was the point at where I could in the future do something that makes a significant difference in the journey, the pathway that I'm on. And so, I think that there's great opportunity with the infinite opportunities we have in checkpoints, and that also can create infinite obstacles. So how do we not feel like we need 1 million takeaways? We just need one or two. And that could really be the point where we're going to move forward and achieve the success we desire.
That was good. That was good.
I like that.
Yeah, I do.
Thanks. All right, everyone. If you have your one thing, your today's antidote, please feel free to share it as well, because we know it'll add value to others. And if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, man, I have something I really like to share. I don't know where to share it besides with the person running next to me. And that might be awkward. You might get a really interesting takeaway from that. If you stopped after you did that and said, how'd that go? Or roll down your window and yell to the person outside the car. You never know. There might be things that you take away.
Yelling at pedestrians, not recommended.
Yes, or pedestrians yelling at cars, not recommended. I had an experience.
Yeah, I've been there. That's not good.
Yeah. Because typically if you do it very long, a police officer will show up and question, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Speaking from a little experience with that. Please feel free to join us in our Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where we are trying to help leaders develop systems and strategies that will provide them with the confidence they need to take their next step and keep moving forward along their own unique pathway to success. And in that group, we'll provide trainings on some of those things that we know have helped us and helped others find that confidence. And we're going to ask you some questions to make sure that we're clear on what you need. It's not just what we know, it's what you need, and how can we provide that, or someone else in the group provide it. And then there'll always be opportunities for you to take that to the next level. So we look forward to seeing you inside of that group. If not, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, for our next episode, Bob's favorite episode of the week.
Can't wait. I was so excited. I got there early today and was waiting for it.
Yes, we were. Because my son is getting married, as we mentioned yesterday. I was looking forward to it. I've got stuff to do tomorrow. So Bob and I decided, let's just record it. So we're going to record it. So I sent Bob 2 links to the 2 different spaces. He went to tomorrow's link this morning, which is why we were one of the reasons that we were a little delayed in getting started. All right, everybody, go out and make it a great day.
Hey, embrace the renegading you on this beautiful Thursday. It's so worth it.
It is worth it. And I think you will discover that if you pause to do a little checkpoint on where it's at and what are your takeaways from that.
I like the dog in the background again.
Yes.
Haven't had that for a couple months.
Yeah, I know. All right, everybody. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.